Well, we're on to part 3 of I Hate to Paint. I say I hate to paint because I've had so many problems painting, so many times things have gone wrong that I have great trepidation every time I have to paint something for fear that I'm going to screw the whole thing up. So this week we're going to be talking about how you can completely screw your model up with an airbrush. Hopefully what we'll get around to is how you can make your model wonderful by showing all the various mistakes that I have made over the years using various types of airbrushes. This week we're just going to be talking about the various types of airbrushes. We can sort of subdivide the entire category into two kinds of airbrushes: external mix single action paintbrushes, airbrushes, and double action internal mix airbrushes. There's a whole bunch of wonderful airbrushes on the market. This is the one I've used forever and ever, and it's actually a really good airbrush, the Badger 150. Most of these airbrushes, the double action airbrushes, have almost the exact same design. So similar that if you know how to use one, you pretty much know how to use all of them. There's actually a fair amount of internal workings here, but the most important parts here are the nozzle at the front and the needle that forms the needle valve in the nozzle at the front. By contrast, a single action external mix has very few moving parts and no reason at all to disassemble it. It's a simple little paint sprayer. You push the button and paint comes out. This is the Badger 250, a very universal design. A lot of people use this. This is the button that you press and it simply causes paint to come out. You attach the air hose here directly above the air valve, and then you attach your color cup here, and the air pressure forces the air up through the external mix and causes an atomized spray to come out of the front of the gun. Here's Badger's very, very simple solution, and it allows you to see how it works. The air flows across the paint nozzle here, and the speed of the air moving across that opening causes a Venturi effect that pulls the paint out and turns it into an atomized spray. Here on the 250, you can see it's actually doing the exact same thing, although the paint nozzle here is at an angle instead of straight up and down. But there's a cone on the end of here, a valve, if you will, that you can screw up and down to control the amount of paint that's going to be added into the air mix. And so that's a huge advantage. Now, a double action gun like this, the advantage here is that you've got a trigger that you operate with your finger that adds air and then separately adds the amount of paint and allows you to regulate the amount of paint while you're actually spraying, and that's a huge advantage over the single action gun. The heart of the double action gun is the nozzle here, just like it is on the external mix single action gun. The difference being that there's this long needle that goes up through the nozzle, and then you can use different size needles too to control the rough amount of paint, a coarse adjustment on the amount of paint. At the front of the gun is the nozzle, and that has to be removable. Moreover, the size of the nozzle has to match the size of the needle. So if you have 3 different sizes of needles, you're going to have 3 corresponding nozzles as well. So this is the Badger Model 150. It's got to be one of the most basic airbrushes ever created. It's the airbrush that I've been using for a long time. And I've considered buying something other than this, but well, this is what I've got, and this is what I'm used to using, and so this is what I'm sticking with, at least for the time being. I may at some point get an Iwata, because this has a feature that they say that the Iwata doesn't have, and that's that if we open this up, there's a nylon seal. And there's a couple of these little nylon seals in here, and over time they fail, and especially when you're using things like lacquer thinner with them, then they're going to want to fail. And the Iwata doesn't have that. It's metal on metal, and it simply screws down tightly, so you don't have any seals to worry about. And I can see where that would be a huge plus. So that's one good feature of that. So the way the double action works here is when I push down on this, I get air and air only, and then as I draw back, that adds paint. Now, good form on this says that you never add paint without first adding air. You never subtract paint without keeping the air flowing. So air, at this point there's air flowing out of here, and I can use that to blow off the model if necessary and get the dust off. Then I can add in paint. Further back I pull, the more paint I add in. And then never release the trigger like that. Pull it back and add in the paint, and then when you're done with the paint, bring it forward and continue with the air, and then release. And the reason you want to do that is when you've got paint flowing through here, if you just release this, you're going to get a glob of paint up here. So what you want to do is make sure that you continue with the air, and that will clear the tip so that you don't get any paint stuck up here in the tip. Now these double action compound internal mix guns like this seem to all share a very similar design, and that's that there's a needle valve that runs all the way through here, and the paint is mixed clear up here. You can see where the paint comes up, travels forward to the tip, and then air travels through here, and it's mixed right in here where it comes out. The set screw that sets that, or set nut, I guess, that sets that needle is always here in the handle somewhere. And in this case, this is the nut that sets that. So if I loosen that, I can grab a hold of the needle and pull it back. I could pull it all the way out, but I'm not going to do that right now. And then in order to set it, you can push it all the way forward, tighten that, make sure this is all the way forward, and tighten that, and now we're back to normal. Now, it is said to be really bad form to do what I just did if you're cleaning the brush, because in pulling this back, I'm pulling the paint that was mixed up here back into the mechanism. And we don't want to pull the paint back into the mechanism. We'd like to keep the whole mechanism through here clear, rather than draw the paint back through there. So a better technique, it is said, would be to remove, I have to use the wrench here, the front, exposing the needle valve here. Then I can release the set screw here and then push that forward, thereby pulling the paint forward and keeping my mechanism here clear. I'm not going to pull it all the way out, because on this particular guy, the needle threads through this mechanism here, and I'll have to reset that if I pull it all the way out. But of course, you have to pull that all the way out for massive cleaning, not for regular cleaning. But if you're going to do an immense amount of cleaning, then you would have to pull all this apart. So to put it back together, I would screw the front back on, make sure this is forward, which it should be because it's on a spring. push this forward till I feel it seat up at the front. Tighten this. This should be seated now. And now as I work this, air, paint, air, like that. I like to keep parts around for my Badger 150. I've got several different tips here. They're actually slightly different sizes. I've got needles here that are also in the separate sizes, larger and smaller. I'm not sure what the sizes are, but let's call it large and small. And then this, I've got another head in here, but if you can see, I've also got spare washers in here, because as I say, one of the drawbacks of this particular brush is that it's easy to damage that seal when you're cleaning it. And the advantage of the Iwata is that it doesn't have that. In this case, my solution is have some spares on hand for when you screw it up. I've had good enough luck with this guy. The one problem that I have had with it is that I use it with lacquer thinners, lacquer paints, and so on. And boy, if these lacquer thinners get anywhere near the water-based acrylics, react with the lacquer thinner and just turn into a rubbery goo and completely plug up the airbrush. For that reason, it seems like a little bit of overkill, but this is what I've chosen to do. I've just had such good luck with this guy that I simply bought another one. And this one is for water-based acrylics, and this one is for lacquers, and then I don't have to worry about any cross-contamination ever between the two, because it's just been an issue that I've had in the past. And well, I won't be having that problem, I hope, anymore, because I've now got two of these guys. And of course, that means having, you know, everything, the color cup, everything is separate. Nothing crosses over between the acrylics and the solvent-based paints. And speaking of other types of airbrush that I have on hand here, I keep this guy around. This little guy is called an auto lock. It's an internal mix. It's a fairly decent little airbrush, but it has a really nice feature, and that's that it has this. It's a battery-operated air compressor. Now, in fairness, you can buy a battery-operated air compressor to run from your other airbrushes. In this case, this one requires that, you know, it's a one-piece unit where you attach the air compressor here. And so when you pull the trigger on the airbrush, that simply starts the compressor and starts the airflow. The color cup on this guy is a gravity feed, so it goes on from above. Like that. And it's a handy little way to get it if you have to get out on the layout and do some work in place outside in the garden or whatever. It's a pretty slick little unit to have. In fairness, you can buy a battery-operated air compressor for your regular airbrush that works kind of the same way. But this is handy in that it's all activated by simply pulling the trigger. Turns on the compressor, and away you go. Really slick. So back in the dark ages, we used to use these guys. It's an external mix airbrush, and where the double action internal mix mixed right up here at the tip, and they pull the paint up and it flows through the gun here, and the air comes this way. In this case, nothing but air travels up through here, air all the way through to the tip, and the paint comes in right here, and it goes up through this cone-shaped valve where it's mixed through an external mix carburation system similar to what goes on inside the internal mix, except that it's all being mixed right out here in the open, right in the tip of the airbrush. The advantage to this, and the reason that I've kept this around and I continue to use it, is if you need to move a lot of paint, these guys can move a lot of paint depending on which size valve. And I've got 3 different ones here. To set up the mixture, you test by unscrewing that, since there's no double action, and then you simply set the mixture that you want here. And when you open this all the way up, boy can that thing move a lot of paint through there. And so I keep that around for times when I'm working on something larger, especially with a gloss paint job, where it's important to maintain a wet edge, and you just want to really move a lot of paint all at once. It doesn't do that great of a job, of course, and you have no control. It's just, and out comes air and paint. But it's sort of like a spray can in its own weird way, very controlled spray can. But it has its purposes. Hence the reason I keep it around. And if you run into a time when you really want to move a lot of paint, or you really need to move a lot of paint, I've got this as well. Got this for doing really large projects like the gas pump outside, but it can even be handy for doing something like a high gloss 8th scale model or something where you just really need to hit it fast like you would with a spray can, a rattle can. This moves even more paint than a rattle can, but just in case you really need to move a lot of paint. Well, I hope this wasn't too terribly confusing. We will move on now to actually using these different airbrushes and techniques for using them. But I wanted to just cover the different types of airbrushes, and hopefully you're going to want to follow along with this. And so if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the upcoming blue button. Zoink, right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and Karen and I will see you here on Sunday. See ya. Bye-bye.